Natalie, how you doing?
Good morning, good morning.
It's so awesome to have you here.
Thank you.
We're in the presence of stars.
We are, well, yeah, I suppose he is a little bit, yeah.
Did you get your showtime sorted yesterday?
We did in the end, yes, we did a nice little display.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, I look forward to seeing your display today. So what got you into this way of life with wolves?
Well, I sort of fell into it. I've always been interested in natural behaviour. Oh, come on over, family, come on over. Let's just start this properly. We've got the whole pack here today. They obviously all want in on the action. So come on in, come on in.
This is amazing.
I suppose that's probably a good time to sort of introduce everybody. So we've got a whole family here. Alice, come here. You're all going to be playing together. Alice, come. So we've got here brother and sister, and typically they behave like brother and sister, as you can see.
Yes.
So this is actually James Bond and Alice for you here today. Beginning of the day, so they're full of beans. Right, come on, settle down now. There we go. Good boy, good girl. So they're part of the acting family here, and I really got into the acting by accident. It was something I've always been interested in behaviour. I've been a remedial behaviourist before that, helping people with their problem dogs. And one of the things that I'm always very keen to get across to people is most of what we think of as problem behaviours in dogs are actually just natural behaviours, instinctive behaviours that we don't happen to like.
Yeah.
So that actually understanding natural behaviour and having a sympathy for it is very, very important. And that sort of interest in natural behaviour is what led me into wolf dogs in the first place. And the acting, although it sort of initially seems in a way quite an unnatural thing in a way for them to do, was part of my desire to provide for my first wolf dog more of a natural existence from the point of view of a desire to explore, do different things, interact and engage, be an active part of the social community that he lived in. He didn't want to be just a trophy wolf, this beautiful animal sat on the sofa. He loved to interact and be a real participating part of the family. So actually acting for him was a way of coming out with the family for the day, being the centre of attention, which as you can see they very much enjoy. And getting to go to different places, do different things, be creative, answer that creative intelligence side of themselves. That's what sort of led me into it, really, and the acting family has grown from there.
Fantastic. And do they all act, or is it just...
Well, we've got a large family, and essentially if they want to act, they do. If they don't, then we don't make them. So it's something very much, it's up to the individual if they want to do it or not. Unfortunately, you can't go play now, I'm afraid. Good man, Mr. Bond. Good boy. So we have some that are a little bit shyer, because wolf dogs can be shy depending on how they were bred and how they were raised.
Sure.
This is a specific type of wolf dog called a lupine. My guys are, as you can see, quite confident and forward going and open.
Balanced as well, though.
And they love what they do. Typically when we're doing an acting job, what we tend to do is we always take along more than one, obviously because they love company, but also because they really aren't then under any pressure to do anything. If they want to go and have fun on set and do some bits and pieces, they can do, but if they don't want to, they don't have to. They can just come along and relax and enjoy the day out. So I think
you give them the choice the whole time.
It's always freedom of choice. All the training we do is reward based, and we're simply asking, do you want to come and have some fun with us today? That's really the goal. And 9 times out of 10, of course, they do. Generally, if they don't want to come and play, it's because there's something wrong. You know, they're not feeling well or whatever. And actually, if you know your animal's behaviour well, and if you're actively engaging with them on a daily basis as part of a team, it gives you much more of an insight. You get a much earlier warning system if they're feeling a little bit unwell, because you know them inside out, back to front, and any change in their mood or their personality or their character is an early warning alarm system that there's something wrong, and that you need to go and get that checked out.
Absolutely.
Good boy.
Hello. So you've got quite a resume. Well, these guys have quite a resume.
They've done a bit in the acting world. The family as a whole has. So they've done things like Ripper Street, Penny Dreadful, Vikings. One of my older girls, she's been in Vogue and Marie Claire. That's her whinging in the background. She wants to be on here as well. They've done some of the UK promotional work for Twilight, Game of Thrones and Jungle Book. And James Bond, although he's quite young, he's actually done a few things. He's out in a few things this year. So he'll be out in a popular kid show, funnily enough, this year. He's literally just out now. Thank you, Tyler, for your contribution. I know James Bond is rather milking it here for the attention, rubbing your face in it a little bit. James Bond's actually out right now in Bear Grylls' new show on Netflix, You vs. Wild. So Bond is out in that. And we've just finished filming something rather scary that's going to be coming out at the beginning of next year, but that's still very, very secret and we can't talk about that.
Okay. So what's a daily routine with you? Because this is your life. This isn't just sort of one walk a day to satisfy.
No. This is Wolfies from dawn till dusk and usually a bit beyond as well. So we are up normally quite early, close to the sun, simply because, especially if it's a beautiful day, these guys love to sing in a good sunrise. They really enjoy a good dawn. And if we're not up and doing something, I think the neighbours might be complaining a little bit. So we're up nice and early, having activities, having a play in the field, going for a stroll in the woods, that sort of thing. And then the whole day really, in a way, revolves around them, different activities for them. They've got different playpens at home. They do different fun training games and exercises throughout the day. They come for walks out and about, so they'll come for a stroll, come to a cafe with us, something like that. And it's all, in a way, part of the acting training, being able to go for a stroll, sit in a cafe. It is part of what they need to make a good acting team. And we do a lot of educational work, community work, with schools or the elderly and whatever. So it does take up a lot of our time.
Fantastic. And here as well, you have people, I've seen they come in and they stroke and they engage with the dogs, which...
It's important to us that we dispel some of the myths surrounding wolf dogs, and natural behaviour as a whole. I think it's very, very important. Certainly, I think when it comes to nature and conservation, you can cognitively know that the natural world is endangered, but I think unless you feel an emotional connection to it, you're not going to take the effort to save it. And I think it's when people really meet these guys, it creates a very visceral emotional response in most people. I think they really do connect to people, and it really helps people connect to a natural world that I think a lot of people are really missing these days.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And you're quite a big proponent in responsible dog ownership. Whilst you bring people in to meet these dogs and you fill them with imagination of potentially owning one themselves,
it's very, very important, and it's an issue not just for wolf dogs but dogs as a whole. Very, very few dogs these days get the luxury of being raised the way that they should be, which shouldn't be a luxury. I think one of the problems that's happened with this whole rising of pack dominance theory and this assertive mentality is it hasn't just pervaded into dog training, but also actually in raising and breeding. And actually this concept of the dog as a family animal has been very much lost, which I think is a real tragedy. The nature of a wild wolf pack is a family unit. So what has traditionally been called your competitive alphas are actually your parental figures. And dogs very much are family animals too. They're family bonds through the selection process to make a domestic dog. That family process has been expanded out to include strangers, so they can be much more relaxed with strangers and view them as family. But the concept of needing family bonds and ties and love and affection and all of those emotions that come from being a family animal, an animal that needs to cooperate to survive, are still very much there. And very few puppies get to be raised in a genuine family unit. There's far too much puppy farming going on. Even when they have the mother there, they often don't have the father there. They don't have an extended family around them. So, for example, when you look at my Watermill Wolves social media pages, we make a great deal about sharing the family unit. You'll often see we're not just sharing the working pictures of them as stars, but you see them living as a family. You see their social interactions, their engagements, you see the sibling rivalries going on. But you'll see, for example, Fluffy Alistair that you saw earlier there. We've got puppies at the moment, and Alice is actually helping out as a babysitter. She's helping out the mother of the puppies and getting involved. And not only is she helping, obviously, Missy raise those babies, but she's learning herself how to be a mother. Very few dog mothers these days get that chance to be babysitters first. Very few get to learn how to be a mother before they're plunged into it themselves. And that's something that I think is very tragically lacking these days. That whole family structure is really missing for them.
And it's clear that you have a really strong family structure here with just how relaxed these guys are amongst each other and the people, and just constant new stimuli going past.
I think anytime somebody wants to breed puppies, whatever breed they're breeding, it's very, very important that they are doing it responsibly. So I think really anytime anybody wants to go and think of buying a puppy, they need to really do their checks on what are the codes of conduct that breeder is prepared to follow. Do they have a code of conduct that they're prepared to follow? Can you actually check and investigate that when you go to see them? So it's very, very basic principles, again, surrounding this concept of the family structure. So, for example, mothers really, they should have a chance to have a full childhood themselves. They shouldn't be bred too young. They should have nice gaps between litters. They shouldn't be being forced to breed again and again.
Yeah.
They should have a nice retirement. We've got the mother of these guys. She's 10 now, and she's retired and at home and living life easily. She hasn't been sold on to make way for another breeding bitch. She will stay with her family forever, and that's the way that it should be. Before she was bred, she had all her health tests to make sure that these guys were going to be fit and healthy. They weren't going to have any genetic disorders or anything like that. So hopefully they're going to lead long, happy, pain-free lives. That's very, very important. There's a lot of dog breeds now. You can just do a very quick Google search of the breed you're interested in and health issues, and that will give you a list of the common things that you need to check up. That is your breeder doing relevant health tests and checks? Can they show you the paperwork for these issues in this breed? And that's very, very important. Those are the very simple checks that anybody can do if they're interested in getting a puppy, whatever breed it is that they're interested in.
Yeah, absolutely. It's gone quite far with some breeds for the aesthetics.
Absolutely. Looks should never be the priority over the health and vitality and happiness of the animal. That ultimately has to be at the core. And you have to consider longevity. While unfortunately wolves in the wild often have a lifespan of 4 or 5 years old, and the number one cause of death is humans killing them, you do find in captivity that well cared for wolves that are given a nice enriched healthy environment can live 15, 16, 17, even 19 years.
Wow.
Now, when you look at that lifespan and you compare that then to a lot of domestic dog breeds, it really makes you realise that we've allowed health to slip, and that we need to make a stand against that right now, or we're going to lose man's best friend, this companion animal that was the very first domesticated species. And amazingly, when we call him man's best friend, that is absolutely genuinely true, because unlike many other domesticated species where we decided to trap and capture and contain and keep those animals for our benefit, they mutually came to coexist with us. They were free living alongside us in our hunter-gatherer lifestyle for a long time before we started fencing and farming and creating agriculture. They were absolutely genuinely our best friend. That is a true statement that has been there since the beginning of time.
Very well put. So you've got puppies at home?
We do have babies at home right now. I'm missing them quite badly at the moment, but they're 7 weeks old now, so they're not in their very early infancy, and they're fit and strong, and Granny is looking after them this weekend. We have the whole family involved.
Are you going to keep many yourself?
Of course I am. I don't breed just to sell. That wouldn't be appropriate, really, as far as I'm concerned.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm breeding, it's for the betterment of the breed, and essentially also when I feel that we're ready for new additions to our family. So we will be currently I will be keeping 3. They've wormed their way into my heart. We will see if it stays at that, but we already have some lovely families lined up for the others. They've had to jump through a few hoops to show me that they're committed, and again, a good breeder will do that. If you're out there looking for a puppy, if the breeder doesn't ask you any questions, that should instantly start to ring alarm bells. Does that breeder really care where their babies are going to? So do be prepared if you're looking for a good puppy, to have to prove to that breeder that you're going to be worthy of the responsibility of taking on one of their animals.
It's fantastic. That's really reassuring. Really reassuring that you go down that route. And what would you say to any people that are thinking about bringing one of these beautiful creatures into their own home or their life?
This particular breed, the first thing I would say is do your homework. For example, not all wolf dogs are alike. Wolf dogs is a generic term in the same way that shepherds is a generic term, and in the same way that the Belgian shepherd families are going to be very different to the German shepherds. They're all very different breeds, and they can have very different behaviour traits. The same is true of wolf dogs. For example, the Czechoslovakian wolf dog is a very high drive working animal that was developed by the military. Not a suitable pet really if you're not going to be working them. These guys, my guys, are deliberately bred for a much calmer demeanour. They don't have that working drive. They love to do things for me for snacks, but they're quite happy, as you can see, in a busy environment once they've had a little play, to settle down and relax in a different environment. So for example, my particular line, the British Lupines, which is trademarked to stop anybody else out there puppy farming and utilising that name. They follow my own particular standard, and they're very different to some of these other wolf dog breeds that are out there. So our Watermill Wolves breeding programme it follows very particular lines when breeding for temperament. And socialisation as well. The type of socialisation and training and education that we do with the puppies before they go to their new homes is really quite prolific. So I always say, for example, one of the things that we offer, and you'll find that most breeders will do this, particularly with rarer breeds, is they will offer experiences and open days and educational opportunities that you can go along to their homes, meet the animals, spend a few animals there. It's all very well meeting them at a show and giving them a pat and seeing them on their best behaviour, but you really have to have a go handling them, training them, walking them, to really see, are they going to be the right animal for you? So I always say, certainly if anybody is looking at these guys now and loves them, do look me up, get in touch and arrange to come and actually visit and really meet them in the flesh and see what you'd be getting into. Don't just go off a pretty picture or you saw them in a TV show, something like that.
Okay, well, one more question.
Boy.
Do you get a chance to go on holiday?
Very rarely. If I do, it's usually with some of these guys in tow. So they're quite used to staying in hotels on holiday, or it's a working holiday. We combine acting with a holiday somewhere. It's you have to make sure. I mean, luckily I've got a great supportive team around me who's always willing to help out. So if I go on holiday, it's really because some of the human members of the team have moved in and are taking over full time. It's absolutely a full-time job back at the centre looking after these guys. You can see they do demand a lot of attention, and they don't like to miss out.
Thank you so much for doing this, Natalie.
You're more than welcome.
I'll come and see you later.
Okay, take care.
All right.
Good boy.
I hope you enjoyed the episode of the Doggy Style podcast. If, like me, you've learned something from the guest, taken value from it, then do like, subscribe, hit that thumbs up button, drop a comment, whatever you want to do. But the most important thing to help us would be if you share this episode just with one person that you think would benefit from listening or watching it. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. Just search the Doggy Style Podcast. We'll come up. There you can see sort of behind the scenes kind of things, what we get up to. And well, till the next guest, thanks for listening.